Hello, everybody. And Nikki, that was a lovely, lovely introduction. And I'm just going to... So trick number one is to sit safely. Come this way. Jeremy, sit there for a minute. Yeah, I'm going to go for the one on the edge, because if anybody's going to fall over the back of it, it'll be me, and then you guys will be okay. It's all right, don't worry. We can sort it out later. You can sort it out later. It's lovely to be here and to see so many brilliant people as part of the startup community of Cornwall. Thank you for inviting me to host these brilliant people. Who have, God, they've been there, they've done it, and they've got out the other side of it. So we've all got massive envy. Lots of you, so as Nikki said, I spent 20 years unlocking the potential of businesses in Cornwall, and I've absolutely loved doing it. As the European fund ended, then I chose to take the leap that you guys are taking. So we're still pre-launch, so I can't tell you who we are, but please follow me on LinkedIn, Alison Glover, follow our pre-start story, and we look forward to, at some point in the future, sharing with you what we're doing. So enough about me and us. My co-founders, by the way, where are they? 3 others, Debs, Becky, and Beck's in the room, there they are. So on to the stories that we have to tell you today. What struck me a minute ago when we were listening to the brilliant people explaining how to get funding is these guys are actually going to bring it to life, because I think there's a little bit of that all of them have done a little bit of it. So this is about hearing the reality, getting some that wonder of hindsight, what they might do differently next time, and some real nuggets and gems. So first up is Lucy. Lucy is the original co-founder with her husband Kurt of Frugy, that much loved brand. I'm not going to spoil the evolution of the story. I think everybody in Cornwall who has small children will know Frugy. It's an amazing story. It's a very heartfelt story, and I'm going to leave Lucy to tell you. So we're just going to have a little musical chairs. Yeah. Lucy, that's yours. Hello, everybody. No, just don't. Can you hear me? Is that all right? Do you want to hear me? I feel really old today, having listened to keynote speakers this morning and with Dom, thinking that I've done it the Cornish way. I didn't do it in 7 years, like it seems to be the thing to do now. I did it in 14, so I did it directly, I reckon. So I started Frugy in 2004. Does this work? I'm not getting a slide. You're not. They'll be up in a second. No, we've got black screens. Doesn't matter. I'll go randomly. It's fine. So I started Frugy in 2004 with my husband Kurt, making organic. Oh, there we go. A tale of two boars. Let's do it again. There we go. All the way back in 2004, which seems like eons ago now, with my husband Kurt, and it was to do with making organic and ethical clothing for children. We went up to 10 by the end, and breastfeeding wear and all that sort of stuff. And I know what it's like to run a fast-growing business and how scary that is. And Ali asked me if I would concentrate a little bit about the point of a board and why we created a board to go towards exit, because we exited the business in 2018, and it was a successful exit. Not been quite so successful since, but I'll get on to that. Anyway, when we got to about £4 or £5 million turnover, it was about 2013, so you can see we were doing it directly, really, but it felt really fast at the time. And we had got a team probably of 40-ish sort of people. The responsibility for it all felt like it was very much on mine and Kurt's shoulders, particularly mine, because he sort of looked after the today department of getting orders out the door, customer service and everything, and I was doing everything in the future. So we felt that we needed some support, guidance. We knew that we had challenges over growth, we had challenges over our supply chain as we grew so quickly. And so I thought, do you know what? I've talked to other businesses, bigger businesses that have exited, and what have they done? They've set up a board of directors. What does a board of directors do? I didn't really know. But I cast out and luckily I had somebody that had come to a SWIMAS talk, a Southwest Manufacturing Advisory Service talk, called Ian Scott, who I'd become quite friendly with. He'd invited my team up to Mulberry. He was the director of Mulberry that had gone from £25 million founder business to a £200 million private equity business. He'd looked after supply chain through that sort of massive growth in a 4-year period. So he knew what he was talking about. And I asked him to come and teach us what boards were, come and be our non-exec chair, which he did, and it was brilliant. First thing he did was take us away. We had 2 days in the Watergate Bay, which was lovely, and felt, that was the most money we'd spent for since we started, I think. But anyway, so we went and he taught us really how to involve our entire team in strategy setting. We told our team a couple of months in advance that day where roughly we felt that we thought that business could go over the next 3 years, asked them to go back with their teams over a couple of months to actually work out what resources they might need to hit those sorts of goals, whether they thought they could exceed them, not exceed them, all their feedback, etc. It helped them feel really, really part of our journey. So out of those 2 days, they all sort of presented to us in the first day, and then the second day we looked at it from a P&L perspective. We cherry-picked the ideas that we wanted to go forwards with, and we presented it back to the team. And all the team then felt like they were part of it. We made sure that all of our goals and objectives and KPIs that felt far more solid and owned by the whole team, we made sure that they all went down into their individual objectives. Everybody felt that they were going for the same goals. We improved our corporate governance, so we had things called the risk register and stuff, which made sure that we were very mindful of anything that might come and bite us on the arse at any point, excuse my language, and that really, really helped us. So we felt a lot more in control, because I had felt that everything was on my shoulders, I suppose, and that I was doing things by the seat of my pants, huge imposter syndrome, and it gave us a structure in which to work. And it helped power us through to the point where we decided to exit. It was brought forward. Unfortunately, my husband got cancer and was very, very, very poorly for a couple of years. And actually, again, having a board of directors, having a team that absolutely knew exactly where they were going, what they needed to do, meant that actually, we could still function through a time when, Kurt and I were a little bit otherwise engaged, and that really, really worked. But one of the good things about cancer, there is one good thing, and it makes you reevaluate your life, what's important about it. And we decided it was time in 2018 to let the business go. And having set up a board 4 or 5 years before, every time we went to a private equity company to pitch, etc., then we were told, wow, you guys are operating in a way that we would expect a much, much bigger business to be working. And it meant that we had 7 offers on the table after a 2-day pitch to 7 sets of private equity. We had a sort of 1.2 million profit level when we sold. We chose very carefully who we would sell to. I felt, again, I think the whole business felt that imposter syndrome of like we were all making it up and stuff. And now we were handing the business over to the grown-ups, because I think it takes one set of skills to build a business to a 10 million, 12 million turnover, and possibly another set to take it to a 50 million turnover, which is where we were heading. So we handed over. I stepped back. One of the key things was that I felt a bit burnt out. It was 14 years of, I had 2 children I'd hardly seen. So I wanted to step back, but I agreed to stay on as a non-exec director and do a little bit of consultancy. that was really painful. When you've been the owner and the founder and can do what you like when you like and all the rest of it, and unfortunately, True really struggled with CEOs. The first CEO hadn't been experienced in being a CEO before. Neither was the third one, actually. We had the pandemic in the middle of it all, and they had ended up with 4 CEOs in 4 years. And it meant, actually, that the team crumbled, really. Huge staff turnover. I think everybody was willing to give everything a go with the new investors and stuff, because we all thought that they had the golden, formula for how to do this. I've learned a lot now. Don't have imposter syndrome, actually. Believe in the team. The team knew what they were doing, and they didn't need lots and lots of people parachuting in on top of them. And it's a sad, sad story, because what happened was the business went into administration in November 22. 2 weeks before it went into administration, we were asked to undertake a boob job, which I only found out at one of Ali's other jobs, means bring the old owners back. It's a desperate thing. But actually, the only way we could do that was to do that solvently, and that meant taking on £7 million worth of debt. So that wasn't that keen on doing that, and the business was really struggling because of lots of different things. A disastrous software implementation could have done with some of you guys, I think, at the time, probably. So heartbreakingly, it went into administration. 100 plus redundancies. But the good news is, I'm very conscious of the time, the good news is that out of administration, Refined Brands, who own Celtic, have taken it on. They've taken on about 30 of the staff now, and we hope that Frugi will be a success once more. So it's been a massive roller coaster, and that's me. That's my story.
So there is going to be an opportunity to ask these guys questions in a bit. So we're going to be using Slido in a minute, and that will come up, and we'll show you how to use that. A little bit of lots of you will be thinking about setting up a board. You might have a board already. Some great insight there from Lucy on her journey. Next up, we have Ilse. Who is going to tell you her story, fresh off the press. Last Monday, I think you had your sale agreed. Without further ado, I'm not going to steal your thunder. The stage is yours. You can do my talk if you'd like. No, you'll be much better at it.
Hi, so I've got 5 minutes, but it's kind of quite a short story, because everything that I've done has been quite lean. So in 2020, you don't want that. There we go. I created an app that used machine learning AI, which is now the fashionable term for it, to track the body position of a horse rider on their horse. And it uses just a mobile phone, so you don't have to put any markers on, you don't have to have any special equipment, you don't have to have special cameras set up. Literally all you need is a phone. It'll even work on Android. And I'm actually an Android girl, but it turns out it works a lot better than on iPhone. But anyway, that's a different story. So I was running this by myself, so very lean. So I figured I just wanted to just do something different, just give it a go. So I had programming background, so I just picked up doing machine learning and making the apps. I also had to pick up all the marketing and everything along the way, and graphic design, which is way harder than I expected. So kudos to all graphic designers in the audience. So I was sort of trundling on merrily myself. I guess it's bootstrapping. And the app had customers, and it was growing, and it was doing really well. I was pretty happy. I was kind of like, okay, should I start looking at different markets? Should I start expanding what I'm doing within the equestrian world? And then I had an email from some company in Sweden who I'd sort of vaguely been aware of, because there aren't actually that many equestrian apps. I'm sure everybody would be shocked. So I was aware of them, and we were sort of both in the digital sphere, but they weren't really direct competitors, so I was kind of like, everyone stay in your own lane. And they approached me, and I was, okay, yeah, sure, I'll talk. And it was sort of like, just have a chat. And I'm like, mm-hmm. And they sort of said, would you be willing to sell your app and the IP that goes along with it to us? So to integrate in with what we're currently doing. So I sort of thought about it and was sort of figure out, okay, so how does this work? Do you just take it and leave? And I just sort of, find something else to do. And they're like, no, we want you to come on board because you've made the mistakes. So we also want to effectively buy you and buy your mistakes. So I've handed the app over to them, but I am staying on with them as a consultant. So I'm working with them to integrate the app into their current system, improve it, develop it further, and then add more machine learning type stuff into their current offering. There's lots of ways that obviously AI is very hot at the moment, but there's so many ways that it can be super useful when applied to actual problems rather than just willy-nilly sort of putting AI in everything. So that's kind of all I have to say. You can either speak for like 3 minutes or you can speak for like 3 hours. It's one of those, like, you get the highlights. So basically, yeah, we announced on the 4th of September, so far it's going well, but maybe... Let's hope it goes well. But it's definitely a weird feeling because I've gone from something that I own myself, so I make all the decisions, which can be quite lonely because you're kind of like, oh, do I want to go this way? Do I want to go that way? And like, I can talk to my dog. You can speak to people, but as everybody said, you speak to friends and family and they tell you what you want to hear. Or they're really good friends tell you what you don't want to hear, but you need to hear. They're really useful, but you can't speak to them when you're tired because you won't be friends. So now I have a team of people, so I also have to take on board their input as well. So some of their suggestions have been really helpful. I'm like, oh, I didn't think of that. That's embarrassing. And other ones, I'm like, no, don't do that. Don't do that at all. And there's arguments. And then you settle it and be like, no, just don't. And then it'll come back again and you're like, no, just don't do that. So it's kind of been an interesting exercise in leaving the ego at the door, but also having the confidence, like, actually, no, I built this. I know how it works. So have confidence that, I had customers, so it was working. But balance that with the ego, like, I don't have all the answers. So I guess that's kind of a balancing act. And hopefully it goes well. So, yeah.
Brilliant. So the secret is those collaborators are out there, and they could be the answer to your next stage of growth, which leads me really nicely into introducing Jeremy Sneller, who founded with others TouchBite. And specialising in facial recognition technology. I'm not going to steal your thunder, but Jeremy's story is interesting because you've been through the raising funding, do I go again? But being the incredible networker that he is, you found the collaboration that's the key to your next exciting stage. So without further ado, welcome Jeremy.
Right, thanks everybody. Yeah, so whenever you start a company, you have a plan, and our plan was to exit. And you think it's going to be a really smooth ride. But in reality, this is exactly what happened to us. So just to talk you through a little bit around what actually happened. So we started the company back in 2015. We sort of basically concentrated on face recognition. We started looking at analytics and recognition. And we got some fantastic partners, Microsoft, Fujitsu, and so on, and everything was looking really, really fantastic. We then went out and persuaded 3 angel investors to invest in us. And yeah, we had Tesco, Sainsbury's, and so on all working with us. But what we didn't realise was GDPR was going to be announced, and everybody was going to be looking at exactly what information we were going to be holding and so on. So that hockey stick growth curve that we looked at suddenly went whoop, downhill. We then started looking at what other applications could we develop, one of which was access control. So we started unlocking our phone with our face. Why not unlock doors and access points? So we developed a push-button version of the system that is today, and COVID came along. So nobody wants to touch anything. So we then had to look at how do we make it contactless. So we made it contactless, and again we started to see the growth opportunity, and I then approached a door manufacturer, a locking manufacturer, to say, look, we've got this solution. Would you be interested? And they came across, and yes, we were acquired April this year, and we're now part of a global Spanish company, looking to take what we've done and go global. So they are a company that has keys, cards, codes, and so on, and they see the next generation as being face. So you walk up to the door opens. Massive opportunity. It's happened really quickly. Well, it's within the 7 years. So, but the good news is, potentially as entrepreneurs, we are the pilot. So there was a few things I thought maybe worth picking out here. I am in the room quite an old entrepreneur. So if you've got that idea, don't hang around. At least try something. Build a team around you that have additional strengths that you don't have. Manage costs tightly. We Airbnb'd the rooms in the house and did a whole load of things just to keep the funds coming in. Think big. We looked at not just sort of the UK, but we thought the opportunity was bigger, and therefore that's when the opportunity to work with the Spanish team arrived. Won't necessarily go through all of those, but take a photo or get a copy of the slides. But I think just further down, look at funding and possibly exit as another option. We looked at exit, and basically, I would suggest that if you're looking at it that way, document everything, work with your accountant, work with your legal team, because they are going to be your friends. And we actually, I know Morels are sponsoring this today. We worked with Morels. They were fantastic. I think the other thing for me is I have a partner that actually had a reasonable job, so I could go off and spend her money. The other thing that is important to me, particularly having had a career in the corporate world, is to look at young talent in Cornwall and give them the opportunities to develop. This was a thing that I've always had. If you're lucky enough to do well, it's your responsibility to send the elevator down. So for me, I'm sending the elevator down. So if there's any support and help that I can give to certainly aspiring entrepreneurs, I'd be happy to do that. And let's go out there and make an impact. Thank you.
So this is where Gary tells me we're going to have slides up here with the details for Slido if we've got questions from the audience. So we'll... is that coming up, Gary? There it is. Perfect, thank you. So if you go to Slido, enter that code, you will then be able to submit a question. And while you're thinking about that and doing that, I'm going to ask some questions of these guys. Lucy, in hindsight... You do. You need one of these. I'll give these out. There we go, one each. Nice and close. This one's just fallen on the floor. So, Lucy, if you were going to do it all again, what would you do differently?
Can you hear me? Yeah. I would go via an employee ownership trust. That is what I would do. It was completely right for an ethical business like ours. But they weren't really around. They were just sort of starting. And actually, Riverford, the food company, who they announced 2 days before we signed with our private equity that that's what they were doing. And I went, oh! But it was 3 months into big due diligence, hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of due diligence spent and stuff. So we went with what we went with, and I didn't know enough. But if I did it again, employee ownership trust.
And I asked that question deliberately because I know that if only you'd known.
Yeah.
So yeah. I'm sure most people in the room will know and understand what employee ownership is, but it's a brilliant opportunity for exit that actually means that your team that have helped you build the business then carry on and run it for you. So fantastic, thank you. Ilse, I know it's very, very early days for you, but you kind of bootstrapped, didn't you? You didn't go for the opportunity of getting funding. Talk to us a little bit about why you made that decision.
My background before was I was in academia, and it kind of felt like the higher up you get, the less science you do and the more finding grants. And if you aren't very good at finding grants or like writing the grant applications, like it just didn't happen. So it was like kind of a burnout, I guess, with grant applications and funding and things like that. And I was lucky enough, my partner was, again, very supportive. He ran his own business, and he was like, just go for it. Just find out how much you can do yourself and just go. So I was kind of like, okay, well, let's just learn, take this as a learning opportunity. I think it was said this morning, like, even if you fail, you've still learned. You've still gone and done something. So it's kind of like, I just want to focus on doing this thing. The internet's amazing. You can learn anything. Like, if you know how to Google, you're fine. So it was kind of just like, oh, I don't know how to do this thing, Google. There's certain skills that you get better at the more you practice. Again, graphic design. So I was just like, just see how far I can get without having to sort of take on the extra responsibility, because obviously then you have to answer to somebody else as well. So it was just a conscious decision that I didn't want to do that. Like, I didn't have a pitch deck, and it was kind of a mini rebellion, I guess.
Okay, and it can work. You've clearly proven that model works.
I might have just been lucky, but
yeah. So, bootstrapping is a definite option. Okay, fantastic, thank you. Jeremy, tell us what it feels like now to, because I feel like I've been through like every step of Jeremy's journey with him. And actually, when you look back at who now are your owners and collaborators, it was kind of a bit obvious, wasn't it? That was
sort of, exactly, yeah.
But what are they bringing?
No, yeah. So for me, you just as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a leader of people, you think that's your day job, and that's fine. It is, but you don't really realise just how much potential stress you are under. Because the thing for me, once I got my head around the fact that we'd been taken over, it was such a weight off my. I didn't have to pay the salary. I didn't have to pay, all these other things. And so, I just literally felt 6 feet taller because I hadn't got that responsibility. And it's really interesting now. I've got a boss, so I have to sort of do what I'm told, which is, unfortunately, he's very understanding. So that's also very good. But yeah, it's a fantastic experience. Those that who've gone through it, it's just well worth it. I know it's a nightmare going up and down the roller coaster, but actually, if you stick at it, it's certainly worth it at the end, I tell you. So.
And you've really looked after your team as part of this process, haven't you?
Part of my give back is to make sure that we give opportunities to young, talented people in Cornwall, and as part of I was paying them what I could get away with to some extent because it was my money. But now we're part of a corporate thing. A lot of them, they've got massive salary increases because they're now part of a bigger corporate entity. So, I'm really pleased. They're all very happy, and we're now growing the team as well, which is fantastic news. Yeah.
So, do we have any questions that have come through, Gary?
We certainly do. The first one in here. Thank you to Anonymous. That's right. Laugh. Yeah, I don't care if it's a pity one. So, from Anne, did you have any other prior options, and how did you spot the wrong money?
How did you spot the wrong money?
Well, I think for us, we did have options when we went for funding, and we ended up being funded by people we knew and friends of people we knew. So that, the wrong money might have been external, but it was people that we knew, could trust, and they were really supportive of actually supporting us. So I think we just spotted the right money, if I can switch it. So.
But I do remember a lot of angst over how do I find the right investors.
We went through, we've heard a lot today about the different investment. I think we probably went through looking at all of those. So crowdfunding, angels and so on, VCs. But it actually came down to 3 angels that were some way known to us. So that was, they were the ones that actually we wanted to go with.
Yeah. And I know, Lucy, you were rigorous, weren't you, about who you finally chose?
Yeah, well, we had the 7 offers. We probably didn't spot. To be honest, the private equity company that we went with, True, were the sexy new kids on the block who had another couple of great brands, but actually, unfortunately, they probably weren't as experienced at doing it and It was good for us personally because they gave us a great offer with no golden handcuffs and all of that sort of stuff. Don't think that they'll do that again for anybody else because I think they've learned through it as well. And they're not bad people. It was just, they struggled actually to find the right CEO, and they didn't want to take our chair on either. So it was just too much change out of the business, all at once, I think. And I think that was probably the issue. Plus then the pandemic and all of that sort of stuff didn't help with recruiting.
And you've not had this problem yet.
No, definitely not.
No, that's brilliant. Any others, Gary?
There's a really good one. It may have to be the last one, so apologies for everyone, but I've really enjoyed the phrasing. So thank you, Rachel Foster. I'm starting to properly adult with my business. Any tips approaching on securing a board with non-exec directors?
That's got to go to you, Lucy, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I did it over a Christmas card. Just sort of said, I'm thinking about putting a board of directors together, and then hoped that I would, get something out. I think one thing about non-exec directors as well, don't feel like you have to have the same one forever. You don't also have to give them any equity. We didn't. We paid like $2,500 a month, I think, for sort of 2.5 days of Ian's time. And that was perfect. And actually, we were very simple. We hadn't taken on any funding all the way through the business until sale. So we were very, very simple. But I would just ask around and be really rigorous. You'd be amazed at how many incredibly experienced business people there are out there. And when Dom said, how does it feel when you exit? And he said, a bit lost. There are a lot of people in that. You'd be surprised at how many people would be willing to come and give you the benefit of their experience. But I would personally pay them, and then if you need other priorities later on, they'll understand that they can, move on, and you might get somebody else, because actually it's diminishing returns in that you get loads and loads and loads of bang for your buck to begin with, but then sometimes you can exhaust some of that, and you might be better off with a fresh pair of eyes, I would say.
Yeah.
So.
Great advice. Brilliant. We're now on red, so I guess that means we've got to get out of here. Please, will you put your hands together? 3 brilliant Cornish success stories. Thank you.